Good evening and welcome to the January 23rd, 2024 meeting of the Abington Board of School Directors. I note the attendance of all board members with the exception of Ms. Fazy, Mr. Muhammad, and Mr. Allen, who are excused. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The Abington Board of School Directors has convened this evening's meeting at the Administration Building, and the public is welcome. In consideration of the health and safety of the school community, this meeting is also being broadcast live on the Abington School District YouTube channel. This meeting is being recorded and will be accessible on the district's website and cable channel no later than Friday, January 26, 2024, to allow the members of the public who cannot participate to view the proceeding at a later time. Comments from citizens will be conducted in person and by phone. Information regarding participating remotely in public comment will be displayed on the screen at the time of public comment, and the board thanks the public in advance for its cooperation. An executive session was held immediately preceding this meeting regarding litigation. This is a place where we hold dignity in high regard. Your presence and your voice is welcome in this space. Do we have any additional agenda items to be brought about this evening? Dr. Fetcher?
Yes, Mrs. Brown. Tonight, for announcements, I just wanted to announce that we have some board policies and superintendent's administrative procedures that have non-substantive changes, and these changes are based on titles of positions that have changed or people who have changed within those positions. I'm going to ask Dr. Melchor to just review which policies this affects for the public and the board.
Thank you, Dr. Fetcher. There are 5 policies that are being brought up momentarily. Within the technology section, the policy regarding acceptable use of technology and web content hosting and maintenance have been revised to reflect Mr. Sneed's title as Director of Information Technology. Previously, those policies refer to Director of Innovation. Within the Human Resources section, harassment by and of district employees, as well as within the students sections, bullying, cyberbullying, unlawful harassment, as well as discrimination, Title IX, sexual harassment affecting students. The non-substantive changes to those 3 policies reflect the fact that there are 2 individuals who serve as Title IX coordinators, our Director of Human Resources and our Director of People Services. So within those 3 policies, those specific job titles are referred to, and there's also a reference to plural for Title IX coordinators instead of an individual.
Thank you. So these are the policies where they are. As we mentioned, they're just title changes and a plural. So we can bring those up if the board would like, but they're pretty straightforward changes.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board in that regard? Okay. Any additional agenda items to be appropriately brought up by my fellow board members at this time? Seeing none, we'll open with comments from the board. Ms. Frazier?
Welcome, everyone.
Ms. Eisenhart?
Good evening.
Dr. Mowry?
Welcome to the meeting. I'm excited to meet our National Merit Scholars.
Yes. Ms. Spalding?
Good evening, everybody.
Ms. Hartman?
Good evening.
Dr. Fetcher, any opening?
Good evening, and thanks for coming out. Really appreciate it, and we'll get to more of that in a little bit.
Excellent. Let's proceed with this evening's honors.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. First tonight, I'm going to ask Ms. Susan McCarthy, our interim principal of Abington Senior High School, and Ms. Casey Shackler, our coordinator of student support services at Abington Senior High School, to recognize the Abington Senior High School students who have been identified by the National Merit Scholarship Corporation as semifinalists, commended, or special scholars in the 2024 National Merit Scholarship Program.
Good evening, Dr. Fetcher, Ms. Brown, and members of the Board of School Directors. I'm very pleased to present and congratulate 20 Abington Senior High School students for their recognition by the 2024 National Merit Scholarship Program. This outstanding group of young people has responded well to the many preparation initiatives in place at both the junior and senior high schools, as well as the elementary schools, because, as you know, as districts, it is the efforts of educators at all levels that result in the portrait of a successful high school student. Also, as you may know, the ultimate proving ground for the Merit Scholar Program is the yearly administration of the Preliminary Scholastic Aptitude Test, more commonly known as the PSAT, and the National Merit Scholar Qualifying Test, or NMSQT. This assessment is given to all students in both 10th and 11th grades. In addition to providing all students with an invaluable practice opportunity for the SAT, the test also helps us to determine who will be recognized in the Merit and Recognition Scholar programs. This evening, we are pleased to honor our 20 students. Unfortunately, some of them had other commitments and were not able to attend. At this time, I would like to introduce Ms. Casey Chackler, Coordinator of the Student Support Services at Abington Senior High School.
At this time, I would like to invite Mrs. Brown to join us to recognize our National Merit students. I will begin this evening's recognitions by asking that the following student join us at the podium. Mr. David Moria. This student has been selected by the National Merit Scholarship Corporation as a semifinalist in the 2024 competition for Merit Scholarship Awards. The nationwide pool of semifinalists representing less than 1% of U.S. high school seniors includes the highest scoring entrants in each state. Congratulations to David. The next group of students, if you can all come up as I read your names. Isaac Burston. James Clark. Ethan Eisenberg. Kelly Gimple. Zachary Golden. Alana Lee. Arson Martyr. Peter Murray. Brody Ufberg. Iris Weingrad. And Frankie Zhang. These 11 students represent the top 5% of a national group of approximately 1.6 million students who entered the 2024 National Merit Scholarship Program competition by taking the 2023 PSAT and MSQT. Isaac Burston is also being recognized as a National Merit Special Scholarship candidate. These commended students have demonstrated outstanding academic potential by their high performance in these programs. Congratulations to you all. You guys can go ahead and have a seat. Thank you. Our next group of students, again, you can come up as I call your names. Sydney Biotto. Zaria Burks. Callan Ho. Daniel Holloman. David Moria again. Anthony Pranzati. And Ayana Ward. These students were 7 of approximately 5,000 students named as scholars in the 2024 National African American Recognition Program. The students met or exceeded the rigorous academic and testing requirements established by the College Board for entry into this prestigious program. Congratulations. You can go have a seat again. Our final 2 students who are being recognized were unfortunately not able to make it tonight. However, just so that everybody is aware, Mr. Braden Delgado is being recognized as one of approximately 5,000 students named as scholars in the 2024 National Hispanic Recognition Program. And Mesa Lyon is being recognized in the 2024 National Indigenous Students Recognition Program. Congratulations to all of this year's recipients, and at this time, Ms. McCarthy, you can take over.
The administration, faculty, and staff at Abington Senior High School are extremely proud of the accomplishments of these students throughout their high school careers. Being recognized in these nationwide competitions is a great distinction for them, and together these outstanding students bring great honor to Abington Senior High School. We also value the support of the families of our honored students because we thank them in their consistent encouragement of their achievement. On behalf of the faculty of Abington Senior High School, we are pleased to have presented each of them with a commemorative plaque that makes note of this great accomplishment. Congratulations, and have a good evening.
If all of the recipients can come out into the lobby for a picture, please.
If you could just wait one moment, I'm sure that the Board of School Directors would like to make some comments.
Yes, floor is open.
Congratulations to all the recipients. Guys, there's a big world out here of individuals just as precious and intelligent as you, and you're going to meet up with them, and you're just going to have a great life. I'm excited for your future.
Yeah, a heartfelt congratulations to every single one of the recipients today that were here with us, and also the ones that couldn't make it. Feel proud, and don't be afraid to feel proud, and let that pride take you forward in all that you're going to do in the future, and we look forward to supporting you along the way any chance we get. Congratulations.
I want to say congratulations also. I'm sorry. Go first. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't think that I could have said it better than my board colleagues. Congratulations to you all for your hard work, to your families who supported you, to your teachers who guided you. The best is yet to come.
This is a huge accomplishment for all of you. Congratulations. It's evidence of your hard work and dedication, and I know this is just the beginning for all of you. So congratulations. Well done.
Congratulations to our future leaders of America. I know it took a lot of hard work, but you're on your way. Good luck to you.
Excellence is the standard, achievement is the result. You shine, and because you shine, we shine. So thank you for making us look good. We appreciate you. You have great work ahead of you that you're doing now and that you'll continue to do, and we are quite proud of you. Thank you, parents, for your support. Be just as proud.
I just want to take a moment and on terms of the district. And number one, congratulate all of you as individuals for what you've done. But as superintendent of the district, this makes me extremely proud because it gives quite a recognition to who we are as an Abington School District community. And it says to the global world out there that this is a special place where kids are achieving and doing very well, and our academics are among the top in the country, if not the world. So I want to take a moment to just let you know that this means a lot to all of us who not only work here, but this is a passion for us, and we're proud of this place. And you make it worthwhile for all the efforts that we put in, because you brought recognition to us as Abington School District, and I'm proud to be the superintendent here for reasons very much like this. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a picture that will be taken outside, so big smiles and carry your plaques high so they can see them.
All right, if I may continue.
Yes, music for all.
All right. Our second honor this evening, I'm going to ask Dr. Matthew Harris, our Supervisor of Fine Arts, to recognize the Modern Music Makers, or M3, as we all know them, music program, which was named by Music for All as the 2024 Advocacy in Action Award recipient in the category of student recruitment, engagement, and retention.
Thank you, Dr. Fetcher, Mrs. Brown, and Board of Directors. We enthusiastically join this evening to share the news of the award Dr. Fetcher just announced. Music for All is an educational organization that has been providing both educational and performance-based programs and events for schools and school music programs since it was founded in 1975. Music for All has served more than 1.75 million music students through its Bands of America and Music for All programs, and actively serves now more than 600,000 music students, their families, music teachers, and fans each year. Instrumental programs know Music for All through its programs and events, including the Music for All National Festival, Music for All Summer Symposium, Camp for Students and Teachers, and the Bands of America Grand National and Regional Marching Band Championships that across the United States each fall. Advocacy in Action is a signature program of Music for All that is designed to collect, recognize, and share effective practices and initiatives that support music education in our schools. We hope that by celebrating these programs, we can inspire others to lead by example and take action in their own programs and communities, just as we have been doing here in Abington. This award specifically recognizes and celebrates the commitment of school administrators, school leaders, community leaders, teachers, and parents who believe in music education, and that we continue to advocate and ensure that it's part of our comprehensive education for all children. This award highlights the benefits of a strong music program, and it shows that our school and community is doing what it can to provide access and opportunities for active music making. It also allows our educators to showcase their own music programs that are sometimes maybe not fully understood yet by the members of the community or the public and beyond. As this was an award, there was a selection. Advocacy in Action does utilize a committee to review applications, and they provide input to the Music for All leadership on best practices for music education advocacy, specifically regarding Music for All's newest advocacy initiative, these awards. So this committee consists of current and former music educators, administrators, community leaders, and business leaders across the globe, all that aim to identify and implement the best practices so that they can be celebrated as outstanding music advocates in the school community across the United States. With that being said, I am very proud and honored to introduce one of our fine music educators here in the district, Mr. Kevin Longwill, who will share a little bit more about this award and what that specifically means here with our music industry programming. Mr. Longwell.
Music for All has recognized Abington's M3 program, standing for Modern Music Makers, for its impact on the Abington School District and community. The program was designed to incorporate music into virtual instruction in the days of COVID, but has grown from that stead to include elements such as our multiple performing ensembles, a student-run record label, and growing music business applications. The program has been in high demand for performance and growing this style of education featured at local, state, national, and international stages through performances and presentations on music industry programming in the field of education. In particular, this award highlights M3's prominence in the area of student recruitment, engagement, and retention. In particular, M3 has demonstrated incredible growth in its time, increasing participation by 1,000% since year one, in the 3 years since it grew, growing from just 25 students in year one to more than 250 at present, and sustaining that growth consistently. In this category, we one of just 9 schools or school districts awarded nationally for the year 2023. We're incredibly grateful for this recognition of our collective efforts and appreciate the continued support in sustaining our programming for students. Thanks.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
In case there are any questions.
Just a comment, and I know I've said this before, when you were honored before, especially for M3. I distinctly remember when you started it. I remember your passion for recruiting students. Even when they said no, you kept going. I want you here, I want you here. It really is music for all, because you wanted to make sure that everyone had access to it. And because of your diligence and the support of your peers, it has grown. So well done. You are seeing the fruit of your labor. So never give up. Keep going. Keep music alive.
And also, will there be another concert at the high school performed by M3 and others?
Given an opportunity to promote your events, I would love for any of all of you to join us on April 26th and 27th for the Modern Music Invitational, which, to the best of our knowledge, is the largest invitational type event for modern music programs on the East Coast. And if you can't make that, May 31st and June 1st is our Summer Sounds concert, which features Abington Middle School and Abington High School student ensembles, as well as small groups and individual performers. Love to see you at either or both events.
Fabulous.
So
Thank you.
I just want to pay a compliment to the program, and this compliment comes from my having the opportunity to speak with students who are involved, and how much this means to them. And often for many students, it's finding a place where they belong, finding a place where they can thrive and do different things in music than they've ever been able to do before. And they are amazingly talented. They do have record labels. I had the opportunity to sing with them. They did tell me I was pitchy. So I just hearing their voices and sitting down and having conversations with them about the program is truly a testament to the program. So thank you for all that you do to make that possible.
Thank you again.
Dr. Fetcher, does that conclude our board honors for this evening?
Yes, it does, Ms.
Thank you. Can we move forward with this evening's orientations?
Yes, Mrs. Brown. Our first orientation this evening is our CDC guidance and health and safety plan review. As you know, we are recipients of the ARP ESSERS grant funding, and our plan is due for a review, as the last time it was reviewed was August 8th, 2023. Our recommendation is not to revise the plan, but I'm going to ask Dr. Rosenthal, to review.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Dr.
Perfect.
Fetcher.
All right.
is
I
that
just
we
want
don't recommend any
to confirm
changes
that
to
we're
our
on the same page,
Yeah.
and that recommendation stands firm.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Great job, Dr. Fetcher.
Sorry about that.
Nice and sweet.
right.
Yes, please proceed with a second.
Can I bring up a point of order? I am going to bring up a point of order.
Mr. O'Donohue, can you please respond? 1 moment so you can get a response to your question.
This is related to a Sunshine Act issue. He can raise it at the moment. Is there a
No, it's a
sunshine?
board policy that's being violated.
If this does not, Mr. O'Donoghue, can you please repeat yourself so there's clarity?
Certainly. If this doesn't relate to a Sunshine Act violation, your time to speak will be after the board orientations.
That'll take up my time for a comment. So
Sir, I'm sorry, you asked your question and a response was given to you. This is not the time. There will be 2 opportunities for you to comment. Please take your seat. Please take your seat if you do not have a question about the Sunshine Act. Thank you.
General Rule 10.
You asked a question and a response was given to you. Thank you so much for complying. Thank you. Dr. Fetcher?
All right, continuing with the orientation at this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Paulo Vittoria, Assistant Financial Officer, Christopher Lionetti, our Chief Financial Officer, to present to you the initial draft of the 2024-25 General Fund Budget. Please note that this evening there is no recommended formal action by the board to adopt this budget at this time, that this is an orientation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fetcher. This evening is the first presentation of many between now and June when we have to complete the general fund budget for the 24-25 school year. This process started in December with our certification of our Sterling Act credits, and this is the next phase where we're going to share with the board the initial draft of our proposed budget. It's just the beginning. It's a starting point for which there will be much needed work between now and June 30 for when is the final time we can adopt this proposed budget. At this time of the year, since it is early in this phase, we have built a statistical budget based on certain assumptions, as there is a great deal of unknowns at this time. And as we proceed through the next several months, we will go back to this slide and take a look at what is it that we now know that we didn't know at the start of this process, so we can infuse the budget process with the information as we gain it. So I want to review what we do know and what we have yet to know and what those time frames are with this slide. We do know that the Department of Education has set an Act 1 index at 5.3%. That is the maximum tax increase that the school district is allowed to use to increase its millage rate for the 24-25 school year. And the budget presentation for this evening does include the maximum amount of tax increase allowable. With regard to real estate assessments, the County Board of Assessments has provided us with an initial estimate of what the cumulative assessed property values are in Abington Township and the borough of Rockledge, and we're using that information applied to a millage rate to estimate what the projected real estate tax revenues would be for the 24-25 school year. We are tracking earned income tax and real estate transfer tax and interim taxes over the course of this year to make a reliable forecast for our final budget. At this stage, we have some early estimates, but I would say that the estimates are too early to be completely relied upon, and we'll continue to refine those estimates for earned income tax and other taxes as we move forward. It's my understanding that Governor Shapiro will be providing a budget address a month earlier than is required. So this February, we'll be getting some information that will be disseminated as a result of his presentation to the legislature about what our basic education, special education, and transportation subsidies will be for next year. We are using estimated amounts in preparation of the budget at this time. And again, as we get information from the Department of Education in the February-March timeframe, we'll come back and refine those and share those and show how that impacts the budget that we're presenting this evening. In addition to the basic subsidies I previously referenced, we'll be informed about block grants to see what other available resources the state is providing to support education. In previous years, we've talked a lot about referendum exceptions. You may recall that referendum exceptions is a mechanism provided under Act 1 of 2006 for raising taxes above the index for certain costs that the board and the administration doesn't have any control, such as the rate of retirement contribution and specifically special ed education. In December, we asked you to pass a resolution that stated that the board would not consider a tax increase greater than 5.3%, and by doing that resolution, we are now prohibited from considering using referendum exceptions, as I believe the board felt that 5.3 limit was more than sufficient, and adding to that would just be overly burdensome. In December, we also asked you to certify Sterling Act tax credits. It's one of the mechanisms for which Act 1 provides tax relief for homesteaders. Homesteaders are residents of Abington and Rockledge that live in the home that they own. And the state provides for tax relief from two sources: gaming distributions, basically the lottery systems in Pennsylvania, as well as Sterling Act reimbursements. As a reminder, what the Sterling Act does, it recognizes the fact that there are Abington residents that work in Philadelphia for which there's no reciprocity with regard to earned income taxes coming back to Abington School District. So the legislator found a mechanism to provide tax relief to the individual taxpayer because of that. These reimbursements don't impact the bottom line of the school district's budget because it's a revenue neutral situation created by the Act 1. Sometime this spring, our federal programs director will be receiving information regarding the funding for title programs. Title programs are programs that provide additional support for students that are at risk, and we have several schools that qualify for those resources. And as those resources are made known to the school district, we'll revisit our federal funding sources. In addition, also in the spring, we'll know of what our potential access programming funding is. Access program is reimbursement for medical-related services provided to students, and this is a reimbursement for those services that we provide. And then there are restrictions on that money. It is to be used for specifically special education education. In this budget that we're sharing tonight, the salaries are projected on the current collective bargaining agreements with the employee groups that work in the district. We have our first look. First look is the reference term that our health insurance consortium uses to say, okay, here's what we think is the initial cost increase for your major medical benefits that you provide to your staff. With regard to the second look, we receive that sometime in this late winter, spring timeframe. If the second look or the cost is higher than the first look shall prevail. If the second look is lower, we'll have a lower increase than is forecast in the budget today. We have been provided by the state the employer contribution for the staff retirement program. That's been reflected in our budget. The rate actually is decreasing modestly again for the second year in a row. It's still well over 30% and a significant cost to our budget. And there's a slide coming up where we can look at the impact that has had on our budgets over the last several years. And then we have some statistical estimates for the non-salary, non-benefit items. Those items include such things as debt, your utilities, your cost of student transportation, supplies, and other supports for your educational program. So as I said, we'll return to this slide periodically to make sure that the board knows what has been provided to us, what we've determined are more reliable factors as we move forward for our budget. The second slide has a great many columns on it that have very specific data. And from left to right, we're looking back to the 2004, 2005 school year. So we have, first column is our school years. We have the millage rate for that school year, what the percent increase was, budget to budget, at that time frame, what the Act 1 index was, if there was one at the time, because that law wasn't enacted until 2006, actual revenues and actual expenses, the difference between revenue and expenses, which is an impact on fund balance. Do we add to fund balance or do we use fund balance in any particular budget year? Similarly stated, the second column is how much fund balance was actually used, but how much fund balance was budgeted, what the accumulated fund balance was, and what the enrollment was over this time period. And I'll start on this far right-hand column for enrollment. Over this time period from 2004, 2005 to present, enrollment has increased over 1,000 students, and that has had a major impact on the need for resources to provide a robust education for our students. But I want to go back to millage rate and index and fund balance. Just as a grounding of where we've been and the cyclical nature that we have used as an approach for budgeting and taxation, all looking at fund balance. Fund balance is a key part of our financial status, especially when it comes to having contingency for unforeseen circumstances, as well as securing a bond rating that would achieve low interest rates whenever we would incur debt. So back in the mid-2000s, the Board of School Directors at that time had some increases in millage rate, and in those time periods, fund balance was accumulating in anticipation of paying the debt for all of the building projects that were underway at the time. That was the building of Copper Beach, the building of Roslyn Overlook and Highland Elementary School, and renovating McKinley, Willow Hill, and Rydell. The board at that time, as I was part of the administration then, felt that with a large fund balance of nearly $50 million, that it was appropriate not to raise taxes, and there was no tax increase for a 4-year period, even though the index would have suggested somewhere in the 1.5% to almost 2% range. The board elected not to raise taxes at those times. And in those time periods, we continued to add the fund balance, and then as taxes remained flat, we started incurring costs above what the current revenue was. And on the next slide, we'll look at what was occurring at that time with incredible increases with the retirement contribution. So we'll come back to that. After a few years of tax increases, the pendulum swung back the other way, and we had modest increases of fund balance, which means revenue exceeded expenses modestly, and we had a fund balance in the $42 million range. Not quite at the $50 million range, 5 to 7 years beforehand, but still a very appropriate fund balance for a budget of this size. Again, the Board of School Directors, based on the recommendations of the administration, had 4 years of no tax increases. And as those remained flat, we started to see that revenue was not equaling expenses. This large outlier where we use $6.4 million of fund balance, that coincides with the COVID pandemic, and the necessary expenses to conduct education remotely hit our budget hard. With tax increase recommendations over the last several years, we still are seeing some of the post-pandemic effects of some of the expenses we're continuing to incur for address learning loss in that $3 million range. So I just share this information with you to see that over the time our budget certainly has grown, our enrollment has grown, and on the next slide we can take a look at that similar time period one of the largest impact items over my tenure here is the change to the contribution that the employer, the district, had to make for the requirement of the retirement system. If we were to look on this chart and could afford the space to look at the years prior to 2009, we were making about a $3 to $4 million expense for the retirement program. At the close of the Governor Ridge's tenure at Harrisburg as governor, changes were made to the retirement program that increased the benefit for staff and instantly put a situation where the fund was underfunded actuarially. So in order to meet the what I'm calling a contractual commitment to its membership, PDE and the retirement fund instituted significant increases where the expense grew from 2009-10 school year to the 22-23 school year to over $30 million. And we can see there was some very significant increases, 42%, 37%, 26%, 20%, where that price escalated tremendously. So those were also time periods where there was very limited tax increases. Tax increases didn't keep up with the expense requirement that was imposed upon school districts at the time. And the way school districts in Abington had to balance the budget is that we deferred aspects of our programs, our facilities, et cetera, to meet that need. There was a period in time where the total non-salary, non-budget was items over $30 million. Well, a lot of that was replaced with mandated benefits. So even though we get 50% of the revenue from the state, this has been the largest growth impact on your budget in the time period. So I share this with you since there are new members on the board, so that we have context as to where we've been and where we're going and how significant an impact this particular expense item has been on us and other school districts. At this time, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Mr. Vittoria, where he's going to review the proposed general fund budget the draft general fund budget as it stands today, compared to where we are today with today's budget. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Vittoria at this time.
So this slide summarizes the 24-25 initial draft general fund budget with the 5.3% tax increase. So this second column here shows the 23-24 budget that was approved by the school board in June of 2023. And we now have an audited beginning fund balance, which is $27.3 million. Revenue is at $178.1 million. Expenses are at $189.9 million. And the budgeted used fund balance is at $11.8 million. The ending fund balance is projected at $5.5 million if we were to use the $11.8 million in fund balance. So the fourth column here shows the 24-25 draft general fund budget with a beginning fund balance of $15.5 million. The draft general fund budget is using the index of 5.3% increase in real estate taxes. You can see taxes increased $6.5 million from $122.7 million to $129.2 million, which is a 5.3% increase. The total local revenue is $139.5 million, which is a 6% increase from the previous year. With the assumption, we assume an increase in basic ed funding, special ed education funding, and retirement contribution. The state is at $45.5 million, which is a 7.1% increase. And federal revenue is at $2.2 million, which is a 43.62% decrease from the previous year. This decrease is due to the depletion of post-pandemic federal ESSER funds. So these three revenues sources total $187.3 million. The allocated fund balance in order to balance revenue expenses is $8.5 million. The draft expense side of the budget projects salaries to increase $3.3 million to a total of $98.7 million, which is a budget-to-budget increase of 3.46%. Negotiated benefits, such as health benefits, reflect a $2.8 million increase to $18.3 million, which is an 18.55% increase. The increase in negotiated benefits is driven by the first look of next year's medical costs as provided by our self-funded insurance consortium, Southeastern Pennsylvania School Trust. The increase in medical insurance cost is based on our staff's utilization and increased costs charged by healthcare service providers. The increase in mandated benefits is $1.2 million. So for the year, it's $42.02 million, which is a 3.13% increase. With the impact on the increase in salaries, inclusion of FICA, PSERS, workers' compensation, and unemployment, the amount of mandated benefits increases again 3.13% as compared to the 23-24 school year. The non-salary, non-benefits decreases $1.5 million to $36.7 million, which is a decrease of 3.96%. This budget area decreases as the 2024 budget included $2.9 million of expense authority for settlements, which is not replicated in the 24-25 budget. The overall increase in the 24-25 expense budget when compared to 23-24 school year is $5.9 million, which is a 3.12% increase, with an ending fund balance of $7 million. So with an index of 5.3, the millage rate goes from 35.21% to 37.07%. A typical assessment of $141,130 would see a tax increase of $262.50, which is 5.28%. The Sterling Act tax credit will be decreased $3 on this property, so the total increase is $265.50, which is 5.73%. The bottom portion of this slide shows the impact on seniors who qualify for the Abington School District Senior Rebate Program. The first two income levels would not see a tax increase. The third and fourth income levels would see an increase of $81.50 to $113.50. So looking forward, on February 27th, we will do a second presentation of the draft 24-25 general fund budget, which will be available for public inspection. And on April 16th, 2024, we will review revenue and expenses.
Thank you, Mr. Vittoria. So I want to emphasize a few things. So we have presently nothing scheduled for March. That doesn't mean that we will not, as we gain information that is pertinent to development of the budget, we can schedule another session, another presentation at the board at any of the board meetings in between those two time periods. We're loosely following the schedule for Act 1 as to when proposed preliminary and preliminary budgets would be presented. So going back to slide 6 that Mr. Vittoria presented, this is a starting point where staff is going to be asked in the next few weeks to begin their budgeting process for all of the folks that are budget managers. That includes the folks that are sitting in front of you at the tables, as well as our principals. And we're beginning to refine these numbers. Again, this is a starting point, and we have 5.5 months of work ahead of us to refine this. So if there's any questions, Dr. Fetcher, we'll do our best to answer them. If we don't have answers at this time, we'll always come back prepared to answer the questions that may be posed that we don't have answers today for.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Floor is open.
In regards to the Sterling Act, I know you mentioned that it was revenue neutral for those who work outside of the city, and yet I'm a little confused with the reimbursement. What exactly does that?
Okay, so if I can help clarify, I'm going to move to the far right column, and we can see there's a negative number in the state property tax reduction line. So the real estate taxes of $129.2 million are actually going to get reduced by a rebate or a tax relief, the tax relief program, to the tune of just over $6 million. That amount is shared by roughly the 14,500 homesteads in Abington. And the reason it's revenue neutral is because the property tax relief from gaming and Sterling Act tax reimbursements of state revenue replaces that $6 million. So the two numbers here, the $3.8 million and the $2.1 million, are equivalent to the $6 million reduction. So that's why it's revenue neutral. How it impacts the individual taxpayer who's a homesteader is that they will see on their tax bill $333 of tax relief that just comes off the bill, and then that dollar amount is dictated by how many homesteads there actually are. So right now, we're using an estimate based on the current year. We will have a true number of how many folks qualify for that homestead relief, and that number will be adjusted once we know what the actual number of the tax credits are and the gaming. I think we'll know that in May. It's one of the unknowns.
Yeah.
PD will tell us about that. And then we'll also divide that $6 million plus. We're in the right range. We'll divide that by the number of homesteads, and that's what will dictate that dollar amount. So that will fluctuate between now and June as well. I hope that answers your question, Ms. Fraser.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments?
I have one, please. So if you can just clarify, slide that you were explaining it to us, the employer contributions. Let me see what number, slide 4 is
Yes.
that? Okay, so at the bottom for 2022 and 2023, we see that it has jumped to 33 million. Can you compare that number to our projection of mandated benefits?
Yes.
I'm seeing 42, and can you compare the difference in those two so that we can understand what else is included in that 42?
Yes.
Or, thank you.
Yes, certainly. So mandated benefits consists of several components, the largest being the retirement contribution that you just referred to. The other components are the contribution that the school district makes to pay for FICA, Social Security, on behalf of the employees. That's at 7.65%. So that's a factor of gross salaries, just like the PSERS, the retirement amount is a factor of gross wages. The other two components are unemployment compensation and workers' compensation benefits. The vast majority, and we can provide you with a greater breakdown dollar-wise moving forward. Be happy to do that, but those are the major components. But over $33 million of that is for retirement. It's the bulk of it.
Thank you. That was helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? I do have a question about 23-24 year in regard to the senior citizens discount. At what point will you be able to tell us what percent of seniors rebate, took advantage of that? Do we have those numbers yet?
Mr. Vittori, do you have any of those numbers with you this evening?
I do. As of today, 39 seniors have taken advantage of the program for a total of $5,700.
Is that an increase from previous years?
Last year, for the entire year, was 41 seniors took advantage of the program for $3,675.
And did we do anything differently to make sure seniors are aware, or more aware?
We have not, but we have plans to do so. And we found out that we need to wait till the springtime so that we can catch people when it's advantageous for them. So we're looking at changing our timing of reaching out.
Thank you, I appreciate that information.
I can tell you, I know for a fact of 6 people that I know personally that are eligible, and they didn't know anything about it. So there are a lot of people out there that are not aware of it. I want to make a comment about the earned income taxes. I know people who live, let's say, in Abington Township and work in the city of Philadelphia, of which there are many. I myself was one for 4 years. And, well, I know with the federal government, if your postal duty, let's say, is 6 and Arch in the federal building, you pay the city wage tax at a little bit lower for being a non-resident. However, if you spent half your time working out of the city, and that has increased dramatically with a lot of people working from home since COVID, what you would have to do at the end of the year, you would basically fill out a spreadsheet and say, oh, well, I was here, I was there. You could have been working in another city or something, and the city would send you a refund for the city wage taxes that were refunded. Well, if the employee is getting the full amount, and like I said, that has decreased dramatically. I know some people whose post of duty is the city of Philadelphia, but they only go into the city 1 day a week, which is 20%. Then that means that other 80% of city wage tax that they're paying is being refunded back to them. But none of that is coming to Abington. And it seems to me as if, I don't know if we can consider anything, and I'm speaking from personal knowledge. And like I said, since COVID happened, that dollar amount has increased dramatically. So I don't know if that's just something that we could consider or look into or whatever, but that's just a comment for now.
I think there's a comment based on that I'd like to share that supports some of the facts that you're pointing out. When you look at our current year of $9.4 million of earned income tax, that's about $600,000 to $800,000 more than prior years, and we're still forecasting an increase, and that's for the reasons that you're alluding to. At the pandemic, a lot of folks who worked in Philadelphia started working at home, and rather than paying Philadelphia wage tax, they were paying local Abington Township and Rockledge Borough and Abington School District wage taxes, and that has increased. Also, we're seeing the impact of inflation, because inflation is pushing up wages as well, which is why we're seeing projection of $9.6 million in the earned income tax area. We can certainly take a look to see if there's any avenues for what you're suggesting, but I'm not aware of any, because we have to apply the tax rate evenly over the wages that are earned, and there's no reciprocity between the system that you aptly described and our ability to collect taxes. I believe I'm correct on that, Mr. O'Donoghue?
I believe so, and again, the amounts that you're claiming would be based on what you would be getting. The amount, when the district claims its Sterling Act tax credits, it's claiming it based on the amount that it would be getting, where it's 1% applying. So that money is coming to the district taxpayers by way of that revenue neutral, when the gambling money is available, by way of that revenue neutral methodology.
Right, and that accrues to all homesteaders, regardless of where they work.
In terms of the communication, I think it would be valuable. Ms. Artur, can you speak to where we communicate about the senior citizen tax rebate and what sources we use?
Sure. So we use all of our typical communications channels, website, social media, and email. It also is, of course, in our board brief. We include it in our superintendent newsletters that come out quarterly, and also just to reach some of our non-parent guardian community members. We contact different community organizations, including those that are involved in the Abington Community Task Force, and ask them to share that with their membership list, whether it be the YMCA, VFWs. We work to make sure that we're contacting as many people as possible, so that we're getting folks who aren't on our email list. We also have been giving out a flyer at different community events. So we also try to encourage other community members that if they do know a senior citizen, whether it's their next door neighbor or a family member, to help us get the word out as well.
there's one other avenue that our communications department does at Alley STEMS, is that there's a flyer in every tax bill that is prepared that describes the program in detail and provides a number for Mr. Vittoria so that he can help people through that. So when your 19,000 tax bills go out in June, there's a significant amount of information about how to apply for the program, both at the state and at the local level, because the state is the state application is the precursor to ours. So that's a widespread distribution that our tax collector helps us with.
Not electronic.
Right, invoice, tax bills are
Snow mail.
mailed. Yep.
Yes, it goes with, we work with the different tax collectors' offices to get that to their membership.
Thank you so much for that additional information. Any additional questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, actually, for the 37 seniors that took advantage of the program, would that number be considered disproportional compared to those that are eligible?
Yes, it is. More of our Abington residents who qualify and participate at the state level, and we are trying to capture that same level, and we're not yet. I've spoken to other business administrators and other school districts in Bucks and Montgomery County, and it does take a number of years to build that capacity through the kinds of communication that Ms. Artur just described.
I will be filling out a few forms this year.
Thank you for your support in that. Any additional questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Dr. Fetcher, does that complete our board orientation for this evening?
Yes, it does.
Excellent. We'll move forward with comments from citizens. Comments from citizens are being conducted both in person and by phone. The phone number to participate in public comment is 267-715-3717 and is featured on the screen at this time. You may call in using your mobile or landline phone. If you are within the room and you would like to make a comment, there are mics to the left and to the right of you. Please be sure to state your name and address.
Oh, I was going to say, where is it?
Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Joe Rooney. Real quickly, I think about a week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago today, just a quick notice, there was a Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, which I didn't realize at the time. I think it was the 9th of January. And I wanted to bring it up because of some of the terrible things that have come out of this board in years past and some of the sitting members that they've said about law enforcement. And on January 9th, Abington Police Department, there was an armed robbery in Abington Township at a, not a savings and loan, but at a credit union, I think, right across from the hospital. And the amazing thing about that is the APD got on that over towards Meeting House and Jenkintown Road. They were able to catch up with the car, chase them down, coordinate with the Rockledge PD and the Cheltenham PD, and they captured the two robbers, they recovered the guns, and they also recovered all the money for the bank. I mean, it's the kind of thing that a story's made of. And our police, whether they're here and they're breaking up fights in the school district or out off of buses or solving armed robberies, they do that every single day. And they deserve first acknowledgement of that, our thanks, and really they deserve an award and individual recognition. So I just wanted to bring that up for our police who might be here, or might be listening, or whatever. But this board has a long way to go to make amends for what they've done to embarrass Abington and our police department. So I just want to bring that up, that Abington Township residents appreciate that stuff, and it should be noted. The second thing I wanted to bring up was I don't understand, and Mr. O'Donoghue knows better than this, why you're in violation of the general rules for meetings of number 10.2. And I don't have time to go over that, but you all know these rules, or you should. 1 minute left. So in that same vein, I asked questions, multiple questions of the board since the last meeting, And one of them was, who has the authority to change a meeting at the last minute? Because if the board's making an agreement to do that outside of an open meeting, then that in fact is a violation of the open meetings law. And if they're not, I can't find it written anywhere. So is it Dr. Fetcher can unilaterally do it? I understand there was bad weather at the last meeting, then the meeting should have been canceled and rescheduled. But there's no policy or anything for any guidance. And I asked that question. I shouldn't be wasting my time. I should have gotten that answer. But I didn't get it because we're not getting any community, at least I'm not. I guess you're treating me differently than the rest of the community. But if people want to know, the board does not respond to emails, and the district has decided not to respond to emails, and there's more on that later. So
I want to thank you for your time and for your voice.
How many people are there that are going to talk?
I want to thank you for your time and for your voice. I made a note of all of your comments.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. If there are any other speakers within the room, there are mics to the left and to the right of you. Please be sure to state your name and address. Mr. Sneed will go to the phone line.
We do have a caller. I caution that this number, I believe, is the same number that showed up at a previous meeting. So
Give it 2 seconds.
next citizen for public comment is phone number ending in 9219. Please state your full name and address.
You can hang up now. If there are any other speakers within the room, there are mics to the left and to the right of you. Please be sure to state your name and address. Mr. Sneed, any additional callers on the line?
No, there are not.
Thank you. Dr. Fetcher?
I have nothing at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move forward with agenda item number 6. Dr. Mowry, can you please read the recommendation to approve the personnel addenda?
It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves the changes in personnel as reflected in Personnel Addenda number 6.1 and 6.1A, and Confidential Personnel Addendum number 6.1B.
Second.
We have a second. Dr. Fetcher?
Thank you, Ms. Brown. The personnel addenda begins with the assignment of Ms. Julia Smith to the interim assistant principal position at Abington Middle School until the end of the 2023-2024 school year, and this is to fill Mr. Ron Bryson's position. Ms. Smith was recently appointed, as you may recall, to serve as a climate officer at the middle school after serving 18 years in the school district of Philadelphia, where she was a teacher, dean of students, and most recently a climate manager. We are currently working on a plan to fulfill the climate officer responsibilities. And the personnel addendum continues with professional staff items, compensation for IP meetings, interpreter, translation services, and support and auxiliary personnel items.
Thank you. Any additional questions or any questions or comments from the board? Okay, as I have recognized other members who have left the district, thank you for your service. I see that Mr. Johnson, Mr. Ernest Johnson, has also left the district. Thank you for your service, and I wish you well. Mrs. Flanagan.
Ms. Frazier?
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart?
Aye.
Dr. Mowry?
Aye.
Ms. Spalding?
Aye.
Mrs. Hartman?
Aye.
Mrs. Brown?
Aye. Ayes have it and motion passes. Dr. Mowry, can you please read the recommendation for approval of the financial report?
It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves the financial reports for the period ending November 30th, 2023, as reflected in addendum number 7.1, and for the period ending December 31st, 2023, as reflected in addendum number 7.1A.
Second.
We have a second. Dr. Fetcher.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. I'm going to ask Mr. O'Neill to please summarize the year-to-date financial data as of December 31st.
Thank you, Dr. Fetcher. Financial summary for the period ending December 31st, 2023. Revenue. As of December 31st, 2023, we received $140.9 million of the $178.1 million revenue budget, which equates to 79.1% of the revenue budget. Through December 2022, we collected $135.1 million of the then $168.5 million revenue budget, which equates to 80.1%. Year to date, we are $5.8 million ahead of last year. Expenses. Year-to-date, we have expended $77.4 million of our $189.9 million expense budget, which equates to 40.7% of the expense budget. Through the same time period last year, $73.8 million was expended of the then $180.9 million budget, which equates to 40.8%. This concludes the December 31st, 2023 financial statement.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Seeing that there are none, Mrs. Flanagan.
Ms. Frazier?
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart?
Aye.
Dr. Mowry?
Aye.
Ms. Spalding?
Aye.
Mrs. Hartman?
Aye.
Mrs. Brown?
Aye. Ayes have it and motion passes. Dr. Mowry, can you please read the recommendation for approval of the payment of bills?
It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves the payment of bills for the period ending November 30th, 2023, as reflected in Addendum Number 8.1, and for the period ending December 31st, 2023, as reflected in Addendum Number 8.1A.
Second.
Dr. Fetcher, we have a second.
Yes, Ms. Brown, I will be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding the payment of the bills.
Questions or comments from the board? Ms. Flanagan.
Ms. Frazier?
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart?
Aye.
Dr. Mowry?
Aye.
Ms. Spalding?
Aye.
Mrs. Hartman?
Aye.
Mrs. Brown?
Aye. Ayes have it and motion passes. Dr. Mowry, can you please read the recommendation for permits for the use of buildings and grounds?
It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves the applications for permits for use of buildings and grounds as reflected in Addendum Number 9.1. All permits are subject to change per the provisions of the Health Safety Plan pertaining to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Second.
We have a second, Dr. Fetcher.
Ms. Brown, the permit addendum continues to reflect requests for buildings and grounds for meetings and other school activities and events for this time of year.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Just when I look at things like this, I wanted to say thank you to the teachers and staff and volunteers who help to make these things come to pass, because it really does bring joy to our district. So thank you for your time and dedication. Ms. Flanagan?
Ms. Frazier?
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart?
Aye.
Dr. Mowry?
Aye.
Ms. Spalding?
Aye.
Mrs. Hartman?
Aye.
Mrs. Brown?
Aye. Ayes have it and motion passes. Dr. Mowry, can you please read the recommendation for awards of contracts?
It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves the award of contracts as reflected in Addendum Number 10.1.
Second.
We have a second, Dr. Fetcher.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Tonight, for your consideration, we have one award of contract, and that is for an electronic employee absence and substitute management system.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Can you remind us if there were any other bids for this? And how did we come up with $36,000 being an acceptable offer?
Mr. Lionetti, could you review that, please?
Presently, we have a relationship with Frontline Education. Proposals were solicited. We're the only respondent, and we believe that this is an appropriate price as it marries up with our existing systems.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Ms. Flanagan?
Ms. Frazier?
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart?
Aye.
Dr. Mowry?
Aye.
Ms. Spalding?
Aye.
Mrs. Hartman?
Aye.
Mrs. Brown?
Aye. Ayes have it and motion passes. Dr. Mowry, can you please read the recommendation for budget transfers?
It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves the transfers within the district's 2022-2023 budget as reflected in Addendum Number 11.1 and authorizes the administration to present transfers in the future when required.
Second.
We have a second, Dr. Fetcher.
Mr. Lionetti, could you please review the budget transfers?
Thank you, Dr. Fetcher. The State Auditor General and the School Code require budget transfers. At the September 12th, 2023 meeting, budget transfers for the 22-23 school year in the amount of $4.6 million were approved by the board. This $4.65 million of budget transfers equated to 2.57% of the expense budget. With the completion of our school district's annual financial report and annual financial report for the 2022-23 school year, we are presenting another $79,834 of budget transfers for that fiscal year. This $79,834 of budget transfers equates to 0.044% of the expense budget. The total amount of budget transfers for the entire fiscal year 22-23 is at $4.7 million, which equates to a nominal 2.6% of the $180.9 million expense budget. If there's any questions regarding these budget transfers, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Floor is open. Ms. Flanagan?
Ms. Frazier?
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart?
Aye.
Dr. Mowry?
Aye.
Ms. Spalding?
Aye.
Mrs. Hartman?
Aye.
Mrs. Brown?
Aye. Ayes have it, and motion passes. Dr. Mowry, can you please read the recommendation for Eastern's operating budget?
It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves the 2024-2025 operating budget for the Eastern Center for Arts and Technology in the amount of $12,119,774 and a capital assessment of $1,050,000 as reflected in addendum number 12.1.
Second.
Dr. Fetcher, we have a second?
Yes, I'm going to ask Mr. Lionetti if you could please review the operating budget for Eastern Center for Arts and Technology, where our students from Abington Senior High School attend for technical programs.
Thank you, Dr. Fetcher. The Eastern Center for Arts and Technology Executive Director and the 8 sending school district superintendents are recommending approval of a $13.2 million budget for the 24-25 school year. This budget consists of an operating budget of $12.1 million and a capital budget of just over $1 million. $10.1 million of the $12.1 million operating budget is for secondary programs that is supported by $7.7 million of tuition payments from the 8 member school districts. The tuition reflects an increase of just over $297,000, which is a 4% increase. Abington's contribution is increasing next year as a function of its increased average number of students that we've enrolled over the prior 2-year and current school year. Abington's 3-year average is 144 students enrolled and represents 23.3% of the secondary program enrollment at Eastern. Abington contributes the highest portion of the budget as we enroll the greatest number of students at Eastern to enjoy that program. Eastern's budget also includes a contribution from the sending school districts for capital improvements to their facilities. The 2024-25 school year is year 5 of a 10-year, $12.5 million capital building renovation project, and a pay-as-you-go concept was adopted by the Joint Operating Committee in lieu of debt financing, and each school district's contribution is determined by its relative market share by the State Tax Equalization Board. Abington has the highest ratio, STEB ratio, of market value. Therefore, we do pay the largest portion of the annual capital expenditure is $253,263, or 24.1% of the total capital budget commitment for Eastern. Abington's combined tuition and capital projects for 24-25 is just over $2 million, which is a $139,000 increase over last year's contribution. This amount is included in the budget projection that we presented to you this evening.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
I have a question. How many students do we send to Eastern per year typically?
Data, if you wish me to share that.
Yeah, the average is 144, but this current year?
Is 159. In the prior 2 years, it was 139 and 134 respectively.
Okay, so that works out to 11,355 and change per student.
I didn't do the math. If you did, I believe you, Dr. Mowry.
Okay.
I can check that for you, but yes, that seems appropriate.
Okay. Okay.
Any additional questions or comments from the board?
I have one more observation.
Of course.
$11,355 per student versus $8.77 students that we're spending through libraries. I just want to put that out there.
Any additional questions or comments? I'm very proud of the relationship we have with Eastern. And I know that in the past there has been a waiting list, so I am excited to see that the enrollment has increased, and I know the impact that it's having on students. I've been attending their open house and board orientations, I think, for the last 4 years, and I'm excited to attend the next one that's up and coming. If there aren't any additional questions or comments, Ms. Flanagan?
Ms. Frazier?
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart?
Aye.
Dr. Mowry?
Abstain.
Ms. Spalding?
Aye.
Mrs. Hartman?
Aye.
Mrs. Brown?
Aye. Ayes have it and motion passes. Dr. Mowry, can you please read the recommendation for the YMCA Summer Camp Program?
It is recommended that the Board of School Directors authorizes the administration to enter into an agreement with the Greater Philadelphia YMCA for use of its facilities at Copper Beach Elementary School and Rydell Elementary School to operate a summer camp with a projected charge of $64,372.20 if all spaces are fully utilized and with proration based on actual use.
Thank you. Dr. Fetcher, we have a second.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. The Greater Philadelphia YMCA has requested permission to continue utilization of facilities at Copper Beach and Rydell Elementary Schools to operate its summer camp program. The program is scheduled to operate during weekdays beginning Monday, June 17, 2024 through and including Friday, August 16, 2024 from 6:45 a.m. until 6:15 p.m.
Questions or comments from the board? Ms. Flanagan?
Ms. Frazier?
Aye.
Ms. Eisenhart?
Aye.
Dr. Mowry?
Aye.
Ms. Spalding?
Aye.
Mrs. Hartman?
Aye.
Mrs. Brown?
Aye. Ayes have it and motion passes. Dr. Fetcher, any additional reports for this evening?
Yes, Ms. Brown, I provide the conference attendance and professional leaves for your information. I'd like to bring your attention to Ms. Karima Boyd, our principal of Overlook Elementary School, Dr. James Etlin, principal of Highland Elementary School, and Dr. Stephanie Viola, Assistant Director of Elementary Teaching and Learning, who will be presenting at the Pennsylvania Association of Federal Programs Coordinators 2024 Improving School Performance Conference, sharing their model for continuing school improvement in Title I schools.
Quite excellent. Very proud of the work that they're doing. Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing that there are none, Mrs. Flanagan? This is not, I apologize. Any other questions about the reports? Any additional items to be brought up from my fellow board members? We will open up for comments from citizens. Comments from citizens are being conducted live and in person. If you would like to call in, the number is 267-715-3717, and you can call in on either your landline or mobile phone. If you're within the room, there are mics to the left and to the right of you. Please be sure to state your name and address.
And good evening, Joe Rooney. First off, when I was a kid growing up here in the 60s and 70s, there were about 1,000 more students than there are right now. So the 7,500 low was when after all those kids grew up and went away and before new people moved in. And the kids got a pretty darn good education. Whether I'm an exemplar of that or not is up for you to decide. The second one is, that's a heck of a budget, $195 million. We have 3 new members on the board. I know a whole lot of people would be a lot more comfortable if you all asked a bunch more questions. There's a lot of important information in there, and you only got half a story today. With PEASers, the way you control PEASers is by controlling the head count. And there's a lot more information about the general fund balance, about what it should have been used for and what it was used for. But if you're interested, I'll give you my best observations on that. If you're not, then I don't know what to say. The last thing I want to ask you all about that is, it looked like a $262.50 tax increase on, I think they said 19,000 tax accounts. I thought it was 22,000. Who all represents those people that are going to pay those $262.50 extra? I have some neighbors who make 18 bucks an hour on a second job. So that comes out to be 14 hours extra of work, plus add taxes and everything else in on top of that. So who represents them? I know it's easy just to say it's only 262 and you're going to take it from somebody, but who speaks for my neighbors and the people that I know? I'd like to get that. One of you all should be doing that. One of you should be representing those people and asking hard questions and maybe even being a little bit skeptical. We're not getting any of that. It's very disappointing. I had a meeting with 70 people last night, and almost none of them knew that almost any of the information about this survey, and I know, am I at 1 minute now? So, here we go. And I got a lot of questions on that also, which I don't have the time. So I ask questions of the board, you don't respond. I ask questions from the school district, and they say, don't ask our employees any questions anymore, go to ICS. So I'm not sure how people are supposed to get answers to questions. Most of those folks that I talked to last night get most of their information from me, and they're troubled by this stuff. So real quick, ICS, we hired them basically to run, it looks to me like a propaganda campaign to get Abington Township taxpayers to agree to a huge bond and then also a great tax increase. But I'd like to ask a question for you all to answer to me because I can't get a straight answer. What's a stakeholder, and why should anybody that's not paying taxes in Abington or Rockledge have an input into increasing Abington and Rockledge taxpayers' taxes on a year-to-year basis, millage rate or whatever? When senior management here doesn't live in Abington and they don't live in Rockledge, and I don't know how many teachers, but a fair number of people here don't live in Abington and Rockledge, and they are putting together a program, hiring a company to spend $75,000 more to give a propaganda campaign to increase taxes.
I want to thank you for your
You should
time
only
and
be
for your
asking
voice.
Abington and Rockledge
Your time
taxpayers
is now
to do
up.
that.
Thank you so much.
Anybody has any more questions, you
Thank
can ask
you.
me, and I
Your
would
time
appreciate
is
answers
up.
to some of the reasonable emails.
And you can
I
have a seat now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any additional speakers within the room? Mr. Sneed,
There is one caller, it's the same number.
you can give it 1 second.
Next citizen for public comment is phone number ending in 9219. Please state your full name and address.
You can hang up. Thank you. Any additional callers on the line?
No, there are not.
Any additional speakers within the room? Dr. Fetcher?
I only have one comment, and that is in regard to the district response to questions or emails. We responded to all of any question that we have. When it came to questions about the process that we hired a company to perform and the methodology behind that, that was directed to that company who was actually performing that, and the professionals that we, as a district, engage in that process. If we do have a website dedicated to any questions that residents may have regarding this process, as well as additional information on that website. And we're able to answer those questions relatively quickly. But I also think that it is important that we want to get the input from as many residents as possible. And we can, by going on that website or contacting us if you don't know where to go, we'll be more than happy to help you out.
I believe my notes for ICS, once you leave a message, you will receive a response within 24 hours. And if they don't have an answer for you, you will still receive a response saying that we are seeking out the answer to your question. So every email that's directed to ICS about the surveys or anything in that regard, they are hired to be able to answer those questions or to seek out those answers. So thank you for that clarification. Anything else, Dr. Fetcher?
No, that's all.
Okay. If there's nothing else to be brought about by my fellow board members, we'll close out with comments. Yes.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay. Ms. Allen? Oh, I'm so sorry. Ms.
You'd
Frazier.
probably say have a
Ms.
good
Frazier.
evening, and thank you for coming out.
You know, when I make a mistake, sometimes I say, I love you, I apologize. Ms. Frazier?
We love you back.
Thank you. Ms. Eisenhart?
No additional comments. Good evening, everyone, and have a safe ride home.
Thank you. Dr. Mowry?
Nothing further, thank you.
Ms. Spalding?
No, I have nothing.
Ms. Hartman?
I just want to thank Mr. Lionetti for the executive session prior, helping us to understand the budget, us newcomers, and spending some time with us and putting all that information together. So thank you very much, and have a good night, everyone.
Dr. Fetcher?
And nothing further at this time.
Everyone have a good night. This meeting is adjourned.